Folks, welcome into another edition of SportsBookReview.com's Roundtable Discussions. Today, we're going to talk a little bit of NFL, and we're going to focus on today? The NFL Draft. I have my esteemed panel today, Gary Seegers, Teddy Savransky, and Flash Watson. Let's have a little bit of fun in this topic, because as we know, not much going on in the field of play for the majority of sports, but the NFL Draft looks like it's going to go on as planned. If we take a look for a quick quote here from Roger Goodell, because of the unique circumstances in our country today, the 2020 Draft will obviously need to be conducted in a different way. Already, we have canceled all public events. We will not be bringing prospects and their families to the draft, and the draft itself will be conducted and televised in a way that reflects current conditions. So if we talk from a fan aspect, Flash, I'll bring you in. We've seen talking about and going over the draft, Radio City Music Hall, Madison Square Garden. We've also seen it rotated to Philadelphia, Dallas, Nashville, and Las Vegas was going to be an unbelievable spectacle. From a fan's perspective, does this change the way that you watch the draft, or maybe your excitement level, Flash?
Yeah, I think it's one of those where you're building up and you're saying, oh, this is what we're used to. But these are unprecedented times. But listen, I don't think it takes away from anything. I think there'll be more jostling. I think there'll be more picks where we think, wow, I didn't expect that. And I'm just wondering if there's a few teams that are actually having a panic up now and thinking, we can't gamble. We've got to try and I think there'll be a few trades. I think there'll be teams that are coming in. And there might be a few teams that are going for the same player, which makes it even better for us watching.
Gary, when we take a look at this, just being a fan of it, right? It's like a rite of passage. You have the 3-day weekend. Used to be just 1 or 2 days squeezed in on a Saturday, Sunday. Now they made it that public event. You get the first round, which is due in prime time. The fans come in and you watch, and you watch the players come out and introduce from different teams. But also, more importantly, Roger Goodell gets booed the minute he comes out here. Changing it from a fan experience now to just a TV experience. Does it change any level for you, Gary?
Not at all. I had a lot of friends that, obviously, I'm based in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm very close to Nashville. I had a lot of friends that went last year, and the experience in person is completely different. You don't have a clue what's going on when you're actually there. When you're at home watching it, keeping up with everything that's happening, this is not going to change anything for the regular fan where it doesn't come to their city. If you haven't gone to Radio City Music Hall and all that, obviously this is going to be the same thing. And I think Flash was right. You are going to see the scouts are not as involved this year because you don't have pro days. You don't have guys coming in for individual workouts. That's going to be a big deal because these guys are going to be less risk takers, I guess you can say. They're not going to go after the guys that you don't know a whole lot about because they're only going to really rely on the numbers at the combine and what they saw on the field. And when you see stuff on the field, obviously you know that it translates, but some guys like to get cute and think that they find the diamond in the rough. I don't think that's going to happen this year. I think you're right. You're going to see a lot of trades. You're going to see some really interesting things that happen this go round, and it's going to make it even more crazy on Twitter. I think this will be the highest rated draft that we have had maybe ever.
It's interesting to talk about because obviously there's always a business model. Obviously, Flash being down in Costa Rica, I'm from New Jersey. We got Tennessee represented. But now, more importantly, Teddy comes directly from Las Vegas. And we're talking about an event that was going to be hyped. Vegas is the ultimate party town. They can handle anything. They're getting, obviously, the Las Vegas Raiders there. They're going to be hosting Super Bowls, Final Fours. This was going to be almost one of those, Teddy, those mega kickoff parties down on the strip because you're bringing in and kicking off not only the NFL draft in a wonderful party atmosphere, but also welcoming in the Las Vegas Raiders at the same exact time. Talk about maybe, Teddy, from a business standpoint as well as a fan standpoint with this getting moved from obviously being on Las Vegas to now a TV type event.
Well, I mean, it's a huge deal for Vegas. I think it's a huge deal for the Raiders in terms of loss of projected revenue, loss of enthusiasm. How the draft plays out is another question entirely. But Las Vegas has been waiting since 1905, to get an NFL draft. And they got one, and now it's canceled. Or the draft itself isn't canceled, but the festivities in Vegas are canceled. Obviously, it's a big disappointment for the town. I don't know there's a city in the world that puts on a better party than Las Vegas. And I had 3 days on my schedule fully blocked out. I'm like, I'm going to the draft. I'm going Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I was going to be down there. And now I'm not, obviously, and neither is anyone else. From a business standpoint, Las Vegas is shut down right now, okay? You talk about 30% unemployment. It's like 70% unemployment here right now, okay? Nobody's working anywhere. All right. This was one of these, let's bring a bunch of people into town. Let's bring a bunch of money into town. Let's bring a bunch of enthusiasm into town. And that's all gone now. So in terms of a revenue projection, it's certainly not good for Vegas. In terms of enthusiasm around town, it's certainly not good for Vegas. The draft will go on because the draft always goes on. That being said, I mean, are we going to see games this fall? At this stage, we still don't know.
I mean, it's really going to be interesting. Flash, I'm going to bring you in here because before we get to talk about the betting aspect of the draft, which I do want to get into, you played on a professional level in Europe. Talk about what this means to organizations, because we're talking about some uncharted waters here. They used to have an unfettered access. Let's bring in players, unlimited amount. Let's go fly to see players. Now you're due to just take a look at maybe an hour interview on Skype. Yes, they were able to get to Indianapolis to check out the players' combine, but taking a look at some of the restrictions here, due to COVID-19 pandemic, NFL teams have had to and will continue to adjust their preparation for the draft. Also, all NFL-related physicals are indefinitely stopped as of this past Monday, so you can't even get the guys to check in. If you're investing millions of dollars in a guy, you want to make sure you get that extra last look at a knee. That's not going to take place. Just talk about from an actual systemic view here from the organizations Flash being brought in is now you're saying, hey, look, I don't have all the options available. I'm going to invest a lot of money. Mistakes could be made here, Flash.
Yeah, this is like a three-headed monster as it goes, because you're going to have the preparation. And obviously your prep is over the last 2 years, and then you get down to the last 6 months, and then you have to test the mentality and the information gathering player. And then that gives you the peace of mind to fit it into the jigsaw. Now, the big thing for me is the likes of like your Chase Young and your Derek Browns, they're going to be so solid because you're not really having to worry about them, and they're the type of player that I think can go into an organization and perform from day one. The problems you've got are when you was only 85 or 90% on a player, and then once you met them and had a good chat and see how they were going to fit in, you come away sometimes going, you know what, he's a hell of a player, but I'm not quite sure that he's for us. And when you have them questions in your head, you can't press the button. There will be organizations, Donnie, that press the button not being more than 90% sure, and then that goes into the realms of a gamble.
Yep, we have some videos coming out on Tua Tagovailoa. Obviously, there's a lot of players in the draft where medical conditions will be of the utmost importance. Gary, just talking about somebody as simple as like Tua Tagovailoa, we've seen the videos come out. We've seen how healthy he is or getting those check-ins. Every time we see a medical update on Tua, it seems like it's going in the right direction, but teams can't go in and work him out. So those are on the levels. You know, being yourself, if you put your cap on and said, you know what, I'm an NFL GM, maybe it's one of those cases where study wrong, study long, meaning like I have too much information that I have in the past. Now I just have to make a smart decision to go more of instinct. How do you think that will impact the NFL draft with some of these guys?
As far as Tua goes, I don't believe he gets past 5 anyway, because I think the Dolphins want him. However, there's still the odds of he's going to be a star quarterback, or at least a prototypical star quarterback, right? Everybody's seen his footage. Everybody knows what he does on the field. He is an incredible talent. And I still believe that NFL teams believe that they have to have that guy. I don't know that it changes a ton for him. It'll change a lot for the guys that were in the, second and third day, deciding whether or not you want to take a risk on that. Taking a risk on a star quarterback, you got to take that risk, right? I mean, you have to do that if you want to win in today's NFL, I believe.
Teddy, millions and millions of dollars are invested in, especially these top-level prospects. And let's also not forget, second, third, fourth round are still making good money. NFL GMs' necks are on the line. They are judged how well they draft. Do you think any organizations might have a benefit of this, or maybe some organizations are lagging behind because there's a lot of choices to be made and not a lot of information that we're used to having out here?
Of course there's an edge here. There's got to be an edge. And let's start with this, all right? Never forget, we're saying, well, teams are going to have incomplete information. NFL teams' draft percentage, the successful picks is what, in the 25% range? There are first-round busts every year, second-round busts, third-rounders don't pan out. You see a team 3 years later, they don't have a single draft pick from a draft 3 years ago that's contributing for their team. NFL teams don't do this right on a year-in, year-out basis. So now we say, well, the situation's changed. Instead of having interviews with players, instead of having more contact with players, now you have to watch more college game film. All right? What do we complain about all the time? It's like, how did this guy become a first-rounder? Did you watch any of his play? He didn't play in college? We all watch college football. I think watching more college game film will help teams as opposed to the interview process, because you see what a guy did on the field. And we say it all the time. That guy's not a first rounder. How did he get moved up? So you ask, which teams have an edge? And it's real simple. The teams with better organizations are going to have the edge over the teams with worse organizations. Teams with better front office are going to have the edge. The New England Patriots will not screw this draft up the way the Cincinnati Bengals will. And you can count on that. You can count on it right now, a month before the draft. The Patriots will have a better draft than the Bengals. Doesn't matter. Cincinnati picks number 1, New England picks number 29 or whatever it is. At the end of the draft, New England will have more valuable players on their roster than Cincinnati will because their organization is better. And you can, that's the best and the worst in terms of organizations, but they're certainly not the only differentials. The Browns going to have a good draft this year. I wouldn't count on it. The teams that struggle organizationally that haven't been good, I expect to continue to struggle. And that means the bad teams are likely to stay bad.
Let's throw in a quick gambling topic here, Flash. I'm going to come back to you first. Obviously, we're gamblers. It's what we do on sportsbookreview.com. We try to find edges in every single thing that we can find. There's a lot of betting going on, and maybe at an all-time high this year with the NFL draft and how people are going to bet this and approach it because we don't have much going on outside of it. Flash, now that information isn't going to flow freely, where the guys can't be brought in, do you find maybe an edge where maybe you can dig deeper and find some maybe out and say, hey, look, is a running back going to get drafted at a certain level? Who's going to get drafted number 3 overall? Will this guy slip past 6.5? Do you find any edges that you might be able to get, or is it going to be just as hard?
I think the biggest edge is coming in when you've got basically an organisation that need an iron man like a quarterback, but they've also just got a new head coach as well. So there's so many jigsaw pieces that need to be fit. I think that they will go for the solid positions. I think the wide receivers, they'll be a lot lower than they normally would be because they will go for your tried, tested, reliables. So I think like your defensive linemen, your edges, and obviously your quarterbacks. And I think they're going to get pushed to the top, whereas before, your top boys may well be your wide receivers. I think they'll get pushed well down. So I would probably go under wide receivers.
Gary, I'm not a huge guy betting the draft, but this does show some interesting topics that you can bring up here. Talk about maybe a betting philosophy that you might be able to use, as well as the NFL teams trying to get these guys in and get them in the right order. Is there anything that you might find saying, you know what, there might be some underlying value in these spots?
If you look at teams that typically draft offensive linemen, et cetera, obviously you want to look at trends from the past because this year they're not going to be able to take risks, as I was saying before. You're going to have to go with what you know. And a lot of team needs will have to be met in this draft. They're not going to be able to meet with a ton of free agent prospects, et cetera. You're going to go into this draft looking for what you need, especially in the later rounds. Early in the draft, you're looking at your star players. You're trying to figure out, there's no smoke screens this year. There's no, hey, he went to visit here, he went to visit here. You're not going to be able to send those out and get people off of your scent. This year, I think it might be a little bit easier to figure out, and I think you'll see lower odds on some of these, like Tua's draft position, et cetera, because I still don't believe Tua goes past 5. Derek Brown is going to be a top 10 draft pick regardless. Chase Young is going to be top 3. I would almost guarantee that. So with those, you might get minus 200, minus 250 or something like that on something similar to that. But it's still a decent bet because it's almost guaranteed to hit. A lot of these, it's going to be common sense picks, right? Your scouts are not going out and visiting players. You're not going to see these gambles in the first round. I don't think you have to worry as much about that. That's the edge that I see on it.
Teddy, it's nice to have you on the show because getting a pro's perspective, you've been out in Las Vegas for quite a long time. How are they approaching, or should I say, how are the sharps or even the professional gamblers approaching the draft and how to maybe bet it, finding some underlying value here, if it is possible?
Very slowly, because remember, the sports books are closed. The casinos are closed. Yep. The limited betting options we have are all via apps, and some books have been more aggressive about giving betting options than others. I'm sure as we move towards the draft, we'll see more and more of these available, and every book in Vegas will have them. But right now, they don't. So from a betting standpoint, I agree with a lot of what's been said in terms of teams are more likely to go with the safer picks. Teams are more likely to look at let's shore up the trenches as opposed to let's find some skill position talent on the outside. I agree with all that conceptually. But when we talk first round betting versus what a team's going to look like through the first 7 rounds, I don't think first round changes all that much. I really don't. The best players are there. They've been to the combine. They have the hard numbers. And in terms of the order they go in, there may be some variance there, but the players at the top of the draft are still going to be at the top of the draft. The randomness comes in the 3rd round, the 5th round, the 7th round, where teams haven't been able to do their full due diligence. Right off the bat, I don't think we see the first round. I don't think is going to be that much different from any first round that we've seen in recent years, except that Roger Goodell doesn't get to shake anybody's hand.
3 weeks until the NFL draft. We got you covered right here at sportsbookrareview.com. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of the Roundtable. Topic today, the NFL draft. For Gary, Teddy, Flash, and myself, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button each and every time we come live with information. You'll get that notification delivered right to your box. Till next time, thank you.